Hi, everyone, and welcome to Friday Night Live. I am your host, Crystal Fry, a woman's best friend. I want to welcome everyone in and say thank you to those who are joining live and to those who are watching in the replay. As you come in, say hello so I can say hello back to you. And we have an awesome topic tonight. On the show, I think this one is going to serve and support a lot of people. Feel the fear, how to feel the fear and do it anyway. I know that fear has been a topic for me this week. If you follow me on this platform, you've seen, Monday morning, Wednesday, all those things. It's been a topic for me for the week. And honestly, all of my posts and all of my teachings this week, they've been just as much for me as they have been for you. And I want to share that with you all because let's be honest, let's be transparent. I'll let you in on a little business tip here. I plan out my topics for weeks and months in advance. Okay, I don't wake up on Monday morning and go, I think I'll do this today. I plan it out. I create a content calendar, and that maps out, week by week, the topics that I want to talk about and what I want to share with you. It gives me a sense of structure, and it lessens my my anxiety because I have a plan, right? So I create a content calendar. So everything that you see, it's been planned weeks or months in advance to be shown on this particular thing. Now, I am no longer a control freak, at least not to the degree that I once was, because I've learned how to recognize what I can control and what I can't control, and not to worry about those things that are outside of my control. So, and all of that to say that this week's topic of fear and the different takes that I have had this week from, Monday morning's words from a woman's best friend, which were, I love myself more than my fear, to Wednesday's ladies lunch break topic, which was, what are you really afraid of? To tonight's topic on how to feel the fear and do it anyway. These were all mapped out over a month ago and scheduled on the content calendar for this week. And it's interesting to me how this week in my life, actually, I've needed to hear this message more than I've needed to hear it just as much more, if not more, just as much, if not more, than the purpose of bringing it to all of you. So it's really been just as much for me this week as it has been for you. There have been a few things happen in my life this week that have caused me to feel anxiety. They've caused me to feel very, very uncertain and to feel fear. And one of those things I'm fearfully excited about, and I'll be sharing that with you guys, not tonight, but very soon. But another was a personal family health situation. And so tonight, thankfully, that all worked out well. But tonight, I'm especially grateful to be here talking to you about how to feel the fear and do it anyway. And so I'm going to share two things that I want you to remember about fear. Okay, two things I want you to remember about fear. And then I am going to share 3 tips on how you can deal with fear. All right, so 2 things to remember, 3 tips on how to deal with it. Okay. So let's get started. Again, I do want to thank everyone who is coming in live and joining us, and those who are watching in the replay. Go ahead and get out your pen and paper and take some notes tonight, okay? So the first thing, all right, fear can be a really powerful force. It can make you do some really crazy things, all right? It can kill dreams. It can feel like it is always there, lurking in the shadows, waiting to get you, okay? Waiting to overtake you. So I want to share these 2 things about fear tonight. And the first thing that I want to share about fear that I want you to remember, all right? First point, fear is a liar, okay? Period. Period, point blank, fear is a liar. I want to tell you how fear is defined, all right? It's defined as a distressing emotion aroused by impending danger, evil, pain, etc., whether the threat is real or imagined. The feeling or condition of being afraid, okay? A distressing emotion. Fear is an emotion, a distressing emotion that is aroused by impending danger, evil, pain, etc., whether the threat is real or imagined. Ladies and gentlemen, I am not here to tell you that you shouldn't be afraid of real threats. I am not here to tell you that fear is not real. It's very real. It invokes serious emotions, some of us to a greater degree than others. So I'm not here to tell you that it's not real, and I'm not here to tell you that you are not appropriate. It's not appropriate for you to feel that fear when you are in physical danger or harm. But tonight, I want to talk about the imagined threats. Not so much the reality, the physical, you can see that you are in danger. I want to talk about the imagined threats. The things that you fear that never actually come to pass. The fear that prevents you from doing the things that will actually lead you to success in your life because you're worried about something outside of your control that may or may not happen. Or worse yet, the fear that makes you think you're not good enough. The fear that keeps you stale and stagnant. The fear that presses you down instead of pushing you to raise yourself up. So that's the first thing that I want to tell you tonight, that I want to remind you about fear, is that fear is a liar. The second thing I want to tell you about fear is that we often fear what we don't know or what we don't understand. Ladies and gentlemen, take a look at our world right now and what's happening. Racism takes its root in fear. Discrimination takes its root in fear. We treat people poorly because we don't understand them, and therefore we don't like them. For however that makes sense, I don't know. But that seems to be what happens. And instead of pushing through our fear of the unknown and reaching out to ask questions, to educate ourselves, we simply fear the things that we do not understand. So that is the second point, is that we often fear what we do not know or what we do not understand. And I want to bring these 2 points up because I want you to remember them, all right? Because fear lives in the dark, all right? It thrives in the dark. It thrives in those places where it's not quite visible. You can't quite see it, because if you could see it, maybe you're not really afraid of it, but you can't see it. It's that unknown factor there. Because when you shine the light on the fear, when you can take it out, when you can unpack it, when you can examine it, when you can see what's really going on, it's really not that scary. So I want you to remember those 2 things about fear. Okay, 1, fear is a liar. 2, we fear what we don't know, what we don't understand. Now, let's talk about the 3 tips on how you can feel the fear and do it anyway. All right, so remember, we are talking about those imagined threats, things that make us anxious or give us anxiety, things that here's one, asking for a promotion. That usually garners up some sense of anxiety, some sense of stressful emotion. Why? Because you're afraid that the answer will be no, right? Or how about, let's do relationships. How about asking out your crush? or that person that you find very interesting, or wanting to, take that relationship to the next step. But you're afraid to ask why, because you're afraid of rejection. You're afraid that they'll say no. Think about, my gosh, fear of failure, fear of success, all of these things. So when these things come up, when we're afraid of failing, when we're afraid of succeeding, because what we might lose if we become successful, not all the great benefits of success, but fear of success is rooted in what we may lose. That's what we focus on. That's, what are people going to think of me? Am I going to lose friends? People aren't going to like me anymore. People are going to say things about me if I become this great successful person. Believe me, it's a real thing. Fear of failure, fear of success, fear of other people's opinions. Got all of those. So I can relate to every single one of those. But so here, as we have those things that come up, right? Those things that we are afraid of, that do give us pause, that do garner some kind of emotion within us. How are we going to push through that and do it anyway? Do the thing anyway. Whatever the thing is, do the thing anyway. Tip number 1, identify your fear. Okay? If you've got your pen and your paper, write this down. Tip number 1, identify your fear. Because like I said earlier, when you shine a light on it, it's not that scary. So what is it that's causing you to be anxious? What is it that's causing you to be fearful? What is it? Do you know what it is? Do you know why? Can you call it by name? Can you say, I have a fear of failure? Can you say, I have a fear of success? Can you say, I have a fear of rejection? Can you call that fear by name? Can you identify it and what it is that's bringing you, these emotions to come up, anxiety, this, stressful feeling? Can you name what it is that is causing that? Identify your fear. When we can identify the fear, we can then educate ourselves on it, right? The more you know about something, the less scary it is. Absolutely. Because knowledge is power, and that gives you the opportunity to make a different choice. When you know about this fear, when you know about this thing that is causing you anxiety, the more you know about it, the less afraid you need to be. Because remember, we often fear what we don't know or don't understand. So, and when you can educate yourself on it, you get to decide whether or not it's a legitimate fear or if we just needed more information. All right, so that's tip number 1, is identify that fear. Okay, be able to call it by name. Tip number 2, change your focus. When you have those feelings of anxiety, when you have those feelings of fear, change your focus. Now, I actually put this tip into practice earlier today, as a matter of fact. This morning, I was filled with anxiety and unrest. I was nervous. I was anxious. I was scared. Okay. And I was unable to sit down and focus and do what I needed to do because of that emotion, because of that anxiety. I was unable to sit down and focus. I was facing a situation where I had zero control over the outcome, zero control. And if you were listening earlier in the broadcast, you heard me say that I'm not nearly as big of a control freak anymore. So that lets you know that when I have zero control over a situation, I don't know what to do about that. That causes me stress and anxiety. I don't know how to process that. Okay. I can't say that I don't. I'll say that I've gotten a lot better about it, but it still creates a place of anxiety for me. And so I was having a difficult time with it. So I changed my focus. I washed dishes. I did laundry. So I clean when I'm stressed or when I'm upset or when I have anxiety. For me, it's a physical outlet. It's physical motion, and that tends to kind of burn up some of that that anxiety for me when I can kind of have that physical outlet to get rid of it. So that alleviates that, and it makes me focus on the task at hand. And if I'm focused on the task at hand, whether that is washing the dishes, or whether that is folding laundry, or whether that is, it doesn't matter what it is. For me, that allows me to focus on that task, which pushes the anxiety out, right? There's not as much room for it as if I'm just sitting here twiddling my thumbs, letting all of these anxious thoughts fill my mind. So that is tip number 2, change your focus. So when you're feeling stressed, when you're feeling that fear come up, don't give it life. All right. We give our fears life. We continue to let them grow when we put our focus on them. When that's what our thoughts are, that is what we bring to life. So when you change your focus, you take that away from your fear, right? Put it on something else. So tip number 1, identify your fear. Tip number 2, change your focus. Tip number 3, this is the third tip I want to share with you tonight. Take action. What kind of action? Well, really, in all honesty, any kind of action. When you are afraid to make a move, to take a step, to do a thing, if you will just do one thing, just the first thing, just the first tiniest step, and then the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one. Taking action is much like shining a light on it, or educating yourself on something that you don't know about. Like I said earlier, we fear those things that we don't know or that we don't understand. Well, same thing happens when you're looking at something, big project. Maybe you want to start a company. Maybe you want to write a book. Let's talk about that for just a second as an example. Writing a book. When you say, oh yeah, I want to write a book, then you're going to have these thoughts that come in and say, well, nobody's going to read it, or I don't really have anything to write about, or what am I going to say, or what is the cover going to look like, or how do I publish it, or oh my gosh, do I sell it online, or do I sell it in hard copy? Do I get it printed? What do I do? That creates fear and anxiety. That puts you in a place where you won't do anything, right? Overanalyzation causes paralyzation. I'm sure people have heard that saying. So in order to get past that fear, in order to get through that fear, you take one small step. You take action. And then you take another, and then you take another, and then you take another. You educate yourself along the way. And while you're doing that, I'm a visual person. And so for me, as I'm talking that through, I kind of envision it as a dark tunnel, a dark hallway. And each step that you take shines a little more light, a little more light, a little more light, a little more light, until you're all the way through and you have a published book, right? So take action. When you feel that fear, don't listen. If you have to make phone calls in order to do, a sales business or something like that, and you hate being on the phone, one, that's going to create a little bit of an issue for you. But you can overcome that by picking up the phone, by doing the thing. That's the only way that you get through, that you push through that fear. Take action. Right? Take action. So those are the 3 tips that I wanted to share with you tonight on how to feel the fear and do it anyway. So 1, identify that fear so that you know what it is that's creating an issue for you. And then you can educate yourself. You can become more knowledgeable about it. You can figure out other solutions to push through that. Okay? The second tip, change your focus. Because our fears are fed by our thoughts. So if we can change our focus when we feel like we are in a place of anxiety or stress or fear, when we can change our focus, we are pulling something else into our thoughts, which means there's less room for our thoughts to feed our fears. All right, so change your focus, tip number 2. And then tip number 3, take action. That is by far one of the best ways to get rid of your fear, is to take action. I'll wrap up on a note here about taking action. So I years ago, probably 5 or 6 years ago, there's no way in the world that you would have gotten me up to stand in front of people to speak. There's absolutely no way, shape, or form that I would be sitting in front of a camera talking to anyone who wants to see it, talking to people in different countries, talking to people all over the United States about the things that I talk about. There's no way that I would be doing what I'm doing right now 5 years ago. Huge stage fright. Did not want to be in front of people, was completely uncomfortable, was very nervous, did not want to do it at all. I was afraid. Same thing when it comes to singing. I sing in church, and for years, I had to stand in the back where no one could see me because I didn't want anyone to see. I didn't want anyone to see me. I didn't want anyone to look at me because I was nervous. I was so nervous. My voice would tremble. It's just ridiculous. But you know what? I kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it. And now when I sing, I stand at the front of the church so everyone can see me, right? Not necessarily by my choosing, but I get up there and I do it anyway because it's not about me. That's another thing too. If you want to get rid of fear, take yourself out of it. Remember why you're doing it. Take yourself out of it. That's a bonus tip. Take yourself out of it. Remember why you're doing it in the first place, or why you want to do it in your first place. Remember what that motivation is. Remove yourself from it. And that oftentimes can help with those feelings of fear and anxiety because the focus is no longer on you. You've changed your focus to something else. So there's another one. So anyway, as you can see, my whole point in kind of talking about that a little bit was the whole, the tip on take action. I took action, even with live video. When I started doing live videos, I was nervous because it's something I've never done before, right? I was a little afraid, wasn't sure how people would react and what they would think or all of those things. And I wasn't really sure about the technology behind it, but I did one. And then I did another one. And then I did another one. And along the way, I educated myself on the things I needed to know from a technology standpoint, from all different ways to get better at what I do. And it's a constant process. So anyway, all of that to say that taking action is one of the hands down best ways to get rid of fear, to feel the fear and do it anyway. Take action, just do it. So that is what I've got for you tonight. The 2 points, the 2 things to remind you about fear, and then the 3 tips on how to feel the fear and do it anyway. I hope that you have found this encouraging and educational. And if it has resonated with you at all, please do feel free to like and share this video out for my friends on Facebook and for my friends there on YouTube. Go ahead and subscribe and hit the little notification bell so that you know when we are going live. And until next week, I hope you have a fantastic weekend. You guys be safe. Do something that is relaxing and fun and maybe gives you a little bit of time to reflect. Do be safe in whatever it is that you're doing this weekend. Protect yourself, protect others. So until next week, I'll see you then. Have a good one. My name is Crystal Fry, and I am a woman's best friend, teaching women to see themselves, love themselves, and transform into themselves, into the women they were created to be. Have a great night.